Hello and welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Lynn Simon, and today we're going to dive deep into the art of habit building. Now, listen, we've touched on this very briefly in some previous episodes. If you haven't listened to them yet, I really highly encourage you to start with episode 1, then come back to this one. So today we're talking about habit building. Let's start by defining what a habit is. Simply put, habits are the routines and behaviors that we perform almost automatically, often without even a conscious thought. So think of things like brushing your teeth in the morning, perhaps checking your email compulsively throughout the day, or think of how you drive to and from a common location that you visit, where we call it almost like being on autopilot. So habits can shape a significant portion of our lives. But why do they matter? I'm going to be referencing a couple of books during this episode that I highly, highly recommend. Check out the links in the resources where I will talk about these books. But the first one is Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit. And then there's another book that actually played off of that, written by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits. I do recommend reading them in the order that they were intended, which is with Charles Duhigg's Power of Habit first, and then James Clear's Atomic Habits. So according to Charles Duhigg, habits are powerful because they help us to conserve mental energy. We refer to it often as muscle memory. A habit is something that you're doing almost automatically. And when a behavior becomes habitual, our brain doesn't really have to work as hard. And this allows us to free up those resources, that brain power, for other potentially more important tasks. It also allows us, by having these good habits, it allows us to grow and improve. Now, of course, there are bad habits that also exist. The goal here is to help to create good habits and potentially minimize or eliminate some of those bad habits as well. When we make a conscious decision to do something, and then we provide the support to ensure that we actually do it, that's building a habit. Now, habits can be the difference between success and failure. So many studies have shown this. So many incredibly intelligent people have spoken about this. So this is not a new concept by any means, but both personally and professionally, building good habits can really change your life. So James Clear talks about in his Atomic Habits about how small changes in habits can actually lead to absolutely remarkable results over time. In business, for example, these habits can lead to increased productivity, better decision-making, and ultimately greater success. Now, if you are an accidental CEO, I've spoken a little bit about these guys over the last few episodes as well, but just to recap in case you have missed it, an accidental CEO is someone who starts a business with a passion in mind. So you've got something that you really, really enjoy. You want to make a career out of it. Perhaps you found a gap in the marketplace, said, you know what, like the world needs more of this. I'm going to provide it. I'm going to create a business around it. Ultimately, these accidental CEOs are following a passion or have found a need in the world that they can solve. They want to help people. And so they open a company. And as much as you know that you're opening a business, you don't necessarily think about what it's going to take to overall run that company, run it, grow it, build it, everything. And so there's a really good chance, if you are an accidental CEO, that you are suffering from what I like to call the productivity paradox. This means that you are incredibly busy all the time, but you don't actually feel like you're getting anything done. This is where building those good habits is going to come in. It's likely that you haven't really properly built a habit for building and growing your business, for creating the tools that you need to support you to be able to continue to grow and build a sustainable business. In your personal life, these healthy habits can help you to live a long, fulfilling, and healthy life and lifestyle. So we're going to start by identifying some of the habits that you want to create or build. If you heard my story that I shared in the very first episode, again, go back to check it out, the episode, but essentially I found myself in a similar productivity paradox. I was really burning the candle at both ends. And while I was at the peak of my career, I actually ended up suffering from burnout. In order to combat this, I had to develop specific habits into my routine in order to help me to avoid burning out in the future. I also was dealing with adrenal fatigue. It took about 3 years in total in the end to recover from it. So I had to build in these habits to ensure that important areas of my life were not getting ignored as I was regaining my health, and to ensure that I could accomplish the things that I needed to each day while dealing with limited productive hours in the day. So if that resonates with you, keep listening. So let's think about what you want to develop as your habits, both personally and professionally. So do you want to eat better, perhaps? Do you want to exercise more? Perhaps it's work related. Do you want to be a better leader? If so, what does that look like? Perhaps it's about showing gratitude. You want to make a habit of showing gratitude to your team members, or maybe it's about showing gratitude to your partner in life. Perhaps you want to develop a habit of what I like to call leading with curiosity, which means asking more questions rather than making assumptions. And let me tell you, like, I lead with curiosity in my personal life every single day, and I do it in my professional life as well. But there are times where I catch myself just making assumptions or trying to provide answers to my team to questions that they didn't even ask. So this is something that I still practice to build this habit every single day. Maybe you want to build a habit that allows you to be able to clear your unread emails. Or perhaps you just want to develop a habit for dedicating time to work on the business, because you find yourself every day in this productivity paradox where things just aren't getting done. You say, I'm just so busy working in the business that I'm not actually spending time working on the business. Maybe you want to develop a habit of learning one new thing each day about a coworker. Whatever that habit is, start by identifying what some of these habits are. And I'm not looking to have you attack every single one of these all at once, but having that comprehensive list of the things that you want to work towards will allow us to be able to start some positive habit building. So how can we go about building and maintaining these healthy habits in our lives and our businesses? So we're going to delve into some specific strategies now. So the first thing is start small. Okay, I cannot emphasize this enough. James Clear really talks about in his book, Atomic Habits, about focusing on tiny changes, or what he calls the atomic habits. This is where that term comes from. And these can lead to big transformations over time. So perhaps it's a matter of committing to 5-minute daily meditation practices every day, or just writing one paragraph of that book you've been meaning to write for years. Whatever that looks like, those small habits really can compound into significant results. I know someone, for example, who wanted to develop a habit of working on their core muscles every day, and they decided to start with planks. And so they would start off day one saying, I want to do a 30-second plank. And the next day they wanted to do a 35-second plank. And they kept upping this to the point where they got to something like 7 minutes for a plank. It was something incredible. But this took building the habit. And it doesn't mean that they were super successful every single day, but they started off small and they gradually built upon that. So when we're building these habits, we want to ensure that we are identifying the cues and the rewards that drive our habits. This is a big premise of Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit. So habits follow a loop, essentially. Starts with a cue. That cue leads to a routine, and that routine leads to a reward. So by understanding what triggers our habits and what we gain from them, we can then begin to reshape them. So for example, if stress is the cue for unhealthy snacking, finding alternative ways to cope with stress can help to break the habit loop. And I'm actually going to be covering some stress management tactics a little bit further on in this episode, so hang tight. But that is a really good example of what that feedback loop looks like in terms of a habit. So something happens, it's sort of the trigger or the cue. And with that, we end up performing some sort of routine, and we end up with a reward in the end as well. So the reward factor comes in when we're building a new habit, is we need to ensure that we are rewarding ourselves for that new habit. Now, another effective strategy for habit building is to make use of what's called habit stacking. I really, really, really like this one. So this concept came from James Clear, or it was popularized by him anyway. And this involves attaching a new habit to one that you already have. So it's sort of that when I do X, which I do all the time anyway, I'm going to add on to that this new thing that I'm going to do. So perhaps you want to learn a new language. So every time you are cooking dinner now, that's a habit you're doing anyway, you're going to listen to a language app of some sort. Or perhaps you want to start a daily gratitude practice. So you could do it immediately after brushing your teeth in the morning. So I brush my teeth, then I do this habit. I know, for example, I had to get into the habit of giving, one of my cats has a heart problem, so she needs daily medication. And so I had to create a habit to ensure that she would get those meds every day. I actually started off with just putting an alarm on my phone as the trigger. That can also be the trigger. But now, not only does my cat tell me every day that it's time for her meds, but I also have paired it up with when I make my morning tea. So when I put the kettle on for my morning tea, as I'm waiting for the water to boil, I am giving her her meds. So that's a great example of habit stacking. This makes it a lot easier to develop and adopt some of these new habits. And eventually, like I said, you get to the point where maybe you don't stack it the same way, you stack it with something else, or you don't need to stack it at all because it has become more habitual for you. Now, over the long term, accountability and consistency are going to be key to maintaining your habits. So you want to ensure that you are surrounding yourself with individuals who will hold you accountable. That will really greatly increase your chances of success. If you've ever seen someone posting on social media saying, I'm on a mission to, say, lose 20 pounds, by putting it out into the world like that, they're holding themselves accountable. So now they've got this whole world watching, or at least, a couple thousand of their closest friends that are watching the progress that they're making or not making, and even sharing any setbacks that you face, any failures that you faced. Being able to share that and be accountable to it will make it that much easier for you to build a habit as well, because you do want to make those people proud. You do want to show that you are capable of doing what you set out to do. So that can really help you by having that accountability. That can really help your chances of success. Sticking to a consistent schedule for that habit also will help to ensure your success. So what I mean by this is, let's say you want to create a habit of getting up early in the morning. Well, you're going to have to go to bed each evening at a consistent time as well. So being able to stick to a standard routine so that your day, it doesn't deviate too much from day to day, allows you to ensure that you have the right triggers to get things done. And then tracking your progress as well also helps to solidify things. So if you are planning on losing weight, for example, you're probably going to want to do some sort of measurements, whether it's scale, weight, or measuring certain areas of the body, doing a BMI count, whatever it looks like, you will want to do something to track that progress forward, of course. If your habit is that you're trying to get your email inbox down to 0, well, track how many emails you start off with each day and what you're down to at the end of the day. And don't get me wrong, I know that one is an incredibly difficult one to tackle and requires some real dedicated effort. I'll admit I don't do great at it, but I did for a while have a really good habit of clearing out 1,000 emails per day. And I would love to get back to that as well, because you have no idea how many crazy emails I have in my inbox, but I digress. Okay, so I mentioned I wanted to talk a little bit about stress management here as well, because there's something really important about managing your stress as a habit, not as a reaction. It's really important that you are practicing stress management then when you are not actually stressed. So by building up this habit of stress management, and again, it's not going to happen overnight necessarily, but by working every day towards building these stress management strategies and techniques, this will ensure that when you actually need to call on those strategies, you will be able to do so much easier because it's something that you've been practicing. So you want to develop the tools for managing your stress before you actually need them. And this happens by incorporating it into your everyday routine. Here's the thing when it comes to stress, it's unavoidable. Okay, no matter what you do. I mean, how many people have been told due to health issues that, oh, you should really avoid stress? I mean, the reality is that stressful situations come up every day, from someone cutting us off when we're driving, to that phone call that you get from someone in your life who's going through a difficult time, to your children, maybe are just a little bit excessive one day and causing you some stress or grief or whatever that looks like, right? So whether it's work related or personal, stress is unavoidable, but you can manage the stressors. So for myself, for example, if I'm feeling stressed, I like to first start by identifying what is causing this stress, putting an actual name to it. And let me be clear about this. When I'm saying putting a name to it, I'm not saying you're going to put an actual person's name to it, as in, well, this person is causing my stress. No. If you feel that a person is causing your stress, I want you to reflect on, what does that look like exactly? Why is something that they're doing causing you stress? What is the actual action that is causing you stress? And why are you feeling stressed about it? So really identify what the cause of it is. What is it that you are anxious about or worried about due to whatever this action is? Because ultimately, a person can't cause stress, but certain actions can. So by identifying what's causing the stress, you can then start to break it down into two specific categories. I want you to turn this into the category of what you can control and what you can't control. So for the items that you can control, you can then start to brainstorm action steps and make a plan to actually take action. Inaction will actually just create more stress. So we want to make sure we're taking baby steps, of course. We don't want to jump in and try to solve a large problem all at once, but we want to take some small steps towards creating a better situation for whatever that is. Now, I do want to be clear that if you are able to control certain aspects of this stressor, that you are clearly identifying what you really truly have control over. So not that you're trying to take control from someone else necessarily, but what are the things that fall onto you that you can actually control? And then I want you to take a look at the things that you can't control as well. So for those items that you can't control, this is going to be the hardest part. This is where you need to make peace with it. And that's where the rest of these tips really come in. So for the items that you can control, we're going to start taking action towards those, right? We're not going to just stand there doing absolutely nothing. We're going to identify what we can do and then start taking actual action towards that. But for the items that we can't control, you kind of got to leave it up to whatever fate is going to do, essentially. And so let me be clear about what you can and can't control. So if someone is a part of the stressors, you can't control what their actions are or how they react. Can you potentially take actions towards being able to have a conversation with them, a productive conversation with them, and perhaps influence some changes in their behavior? Possibly. It does not mean that you can actually control their behavior either, though. So you want to ensure that that's where you're calling on the rest of these tools in your toolbox to help you to navigate the stressful situation. And I want you to also, when it comes to these stressful situations and, building a stress management habit, I want you to start off small too. So let's ideally not take some major catastrophe that's happening in your life right now, and instead maybe focus on a smaller item that's sort of setting you off a little bit. Okay, so here's what I've got in terms of some stress management techniques. And these are tailored specifically for the busy business owners and busy entrepreneurs, because I know you don't have a lot of time in your day, but if you can develop the habit of using these on a daily basis, you'll be amazed at your productivity levels. You'll be amazed at how well you'll be able to handle most situations that are thrown at you. And you'll be in a much better position every single day to move your business forward and get out of that productivity paradox. Okay, so the first one is some sort of movement, whether it's walking or some other light movement. This could be a walk, this could be yoga, this could be stretching. I recommend taking at least a few 10-minute breaks every single day. Now, if you want to go for a walk, you might want to go for a little bit of a longer walk. Maybe you're going for a 20 or 30-minute walk or something, but I still want you incorporating, 5 to 10-minute breaks to do a little yoga, do a little stretching, just get some movement going on, get that body moving, get those juices flowing. So this is especially important if you work in a job where you are sitting all day. Now, if your job is more labor intensive, I still very much recommend incorporating this habit, because here's the thing. Just because your job actually allows you to be active and enjoying some movement, it's not necessarily the movement of relaxation that your body's going to enjoy. So what this does, by starting to incorporate stretching or yoga or a light leisurely walk into your routine, is it triggers your brain that that's a time for you to turn things off a little bit and enjoy the moment. And so this will allow you to refocus your energies. So especially if any of your stresses are coming from work-related tasks, this allows you to refocus, and you'll be able to call upon this again in the times where you're actually stressed. So the other thing that I recommend when it comes to stress management is we're going to call on all 5 of our senses. So I want you to think about how you can do this. And to be honest, making a bit of a list for yourself is a great way to build the habit of it. Once it's a habit, you will not need that list anymore. But as you're building that habit, it'd be really, really great to just have that list to be able to call on in the moment. So think of your 5 senses. This is your touch, smell, taste, sight, and sound, of course. And so let's start with touch. What does that look like? Perhaps it's taking a bath. Okay, I understand you may not be able to stop in the middle of the day to take a bath. Great. Perhaps it's about just wrapping yourself in a cozy blanket. Maybe it's snuggling a pet. If you are out of the house and you need to evoke the touch, what does that look like for you? Is there something that you can enjoy feeling? Maybe it's a leather-bound notebook. Perhaps it's about just holding a pen in your hand, or perhaps it's being out in nature and touching the grass. Whatever it looks like, see what you can come up with that would help you to take your focus away from whatever it is that is stressing you, so that you can just focus on whatever it is that you are touching. Let's talk about the sense of smell. So this could be lighting a candle. It could be about burning some essential oils and breathing those in. Perhaps it's as simple as going for a walk outside and breathing in the fresh air. Maybe it's something like a cup of tea, for example, that you can inhale, or coffee, or whatever it is that you enjoy that really evokes that sense. And then, speaking of which, taste is the next sense that I want to talk about. So this, again, could be a cup of tea. That one thing that can potentially evoke a couple of senses, right? So that cup of tea, maybe it's about having a piece of candy or some other comfort food. Naturally, be very careful about this one, that you're not developing any sort of bad habits when it comes to coping with food. But your sense of taste can be a really, really powerful association, both positive and negative. So by having that sense of taste in a positive association, that will allow you to be able to call on that in a time that you need it. So for example, it could be something as simple as putting some gum in your mouth, or finding like a breath mint or something, or popping just like a simple little hard candy into your mouth. Something like that can help to just trigger a more relaxed mindset. And then sight. So what is it that you're looking at? So this again goes back to some of the movement stuff we talked about. Change your location, change what it is you're looking at, change where your focus is. So focus on something else, whether it's the clouds, or perhaps you're going to read a book for a little while, or watch a TV show, or maybe screen time if you really need something. I don't normally recommend screen time as a good escape, but maybe it's as simple as just playing a little game on your phone or something. And then sound. What will help to evoke that sound and provide, or evoke the sense of sound, I should say, like the sense of hearing, and provoke those warm, cozy feelings and calming feelings. So maybe some calming sounds such as ocean or rain. There's a lot of great apps for that. Maybe it's just about getting some music. I do caution you with music, only because music can often provide associations to specific songs or lyrics sometimes. So if you are going to do music, I recommend a more ambient type of music, something that maybe wouldn't have an immediate association. Perhaps your sense of sound is verbal affirmations, or playing an instrument, or something along those lines. So think about the ways that you might incorporate each one of these 5 senses. So now, when it comes to stress management, I've talked previously about some of my own health and fitness routines. And there is a lot of science to back up just the value of exercise on our mental health. Now, of course, everyone is going to have a different fitness level and we're all starting at different places. But if you don't already have a consistent habit of exercise, I do recommend taking a look at how you might be able to incorporate this into your life. The most successful people have a pretty steady regimen of exercise. So figure out what works best for you. My best recommendation when it comes to this is to find what you enjoy, because everyone's different. Personally, I'm a runner. I love going for my runs, and I know that's not for everyone. So if you have tried to enjoy running because you hear about people like myself who get the runner's high and we just cannot stop talking about how much we enjoy running, if that's just not you, then stop trying to be a runner. Don't get me wrong. Again, it goes back to habit building. I do recommend trying it for a decent amount of time before you give up on it, because sometimes when something is challenging, it's hard for us to get the joy out of it because of the challenges that we're facing. But as it gets easier, we do enjoy it more, sort of like that whole learning curve of things. So that might be something that you want to try out. For myself, I also love boxing, so that really gets me going in the morning. And I also incorporate strength training because, again, it's something that else that I enjoy. And my strength training is mostly Pilates these days because that's something that I've enjoyed for a number of years now. But again, figure out what you enjoy. Is it yoga? Is it CrossFit? Is it boxing? Is it swimming? What does your joy look like when it comes to exercise? And let me be clear about this too. Not everyone is going to ever enjoy exercise, but the more joy you can find in it, the easier it will be for you to develop that habit. And this, again, will help to sustain you, especially on a really difficult day. Knowing that you started your day with a workout or you're ending your day with a workout will really go a long way towards your mental well-being. All right, now, when it comes to stress management and healthy habits, we also would be remiss if we did not discuss eating well. Here's the thing. We get our energy from food, so we want to keep this in mind. This means limiting foods that might cause you to be sluggish. So these are things like sugars and wheats, and everyone's body, of course, is going to react to different foods differently. But we know the science behind foods that actually give us energy. So look at what those foods are for you that you enjoy and work on incorporating them into your life. So this means a healthy dose of fruits and vegetables. But here's the thing, fruits have quite a bit of sugar in them as well. Yes, they're natural sugars, but you'll want to be mindful that if you're binging on fruit all day long, your body is going to be retaining that sugar as well. So what are some other things perhaps that you could replace some of that with? And so in order to, I did mention that these tips are all intended for the busy entrepreneur. So I'm not looking for you to have to do anything that takes a ton of time. So I'm not telling you to all of a sudden that you got to become the top chef in your neighborhood, but perhaps developing a habit of meal planning and or meal prepping would really go a long way to helping you with healthy eating habits. So you can also look into, though, what delivery services exist for you. So there are a lot of great companies now that produce pre-made healthy foods. And these are usually refrigerated, not frozen, but there are some frozen options as well. That if you really find that you're just too busy to make food, avoid the last minute, I'm going to stop at the fast food place on the way home from work type of decisions by having some healthy options already on hand. One thing that I absolutely love to do for myself, and I recommend you try it out as well, is what I call a snacking cheat sheet. So I put this on my fridge, and when I get the urge for some sort of snack, I take a look at my cheat sheet that tells me what some great snacking options are that I have already ready to grab, as opposed to just, opening the fridge, standing there, staring at it and going for, what am I craving right now? So by having that healthy snack cheat sheet, you're going to be more likely to make good decisions about your snack. All right. The next thing on my stress management tip list is meditation and breathing. And these are technically two different things, but I wanted to group them together because they don't necessarily work for everyone. Not everyone's into meditating. There is a lot of value. There's a huge power behind being able to spend that focused time meditating, but that might not be something that you are comfortable with or that you can really build that habit of. So take a look at breathing instead. So this is similar to meditation, but breathing just focuses on your breath work. There are actually apps that you can download that will walk you through various breathing exercises. But the goal is to be taking some good controlled breaths. My favorite breathing exercise is 4 seconds in, hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then exhale for 4 seconds. That one, just doing that a few times, is absolutely incredible at calming your nerves and helping to reset you in a way. So this is really great whether you're stressed or not stressed. I do this several times a day. If anyone has an Apple Watch, there was a time where Apple, and maybe they still do this, where they had this reminder that would come up on your watch to breathe. And most people I know turned off that reminder because it was really annoying to have it pop up every hour. Hey, don't forget to breathe. Like you weren't actually breathing. But I do recommend perhaps setting yourself a little bit of a reminder to breathe if it's something that you don't already have a habit of doing. And for the meditation, you'll want to find the same time every day for meditating. Meditating is not something that you should say like, oh, I just kind of feel like meditating right now. It can be effective that way, don't get me wrong, but it is most effective when it is a part of your routine. So setting a specific time each day, so setting a specific location or method of meditation. There are some great guided meditations out there. Simply do a Google search. You will find there's various apps for it. There's YouTube videos for it. So I'm sure that you can find something that will help to guide you on your meditation journey if that's something that you are interested in pursuing. Another thing that really helps with stress management, and especially for busy entrepreneurs, is journaling. So journaling is about getting your thoughts and feelings out of your head and onto paper, whether it's digital paper or actual physical paper, I don't care. And journaling looks a little bit different for everyone. This is not necessarily a Dear Diary type of moment, but it can be. If you choose to journal by actually putting a name to things and, essentially creating the atmosphere of you actually speaking to someone, if that helps you, by all means do it. But the idea of journaling is to recap your day or start off your day with usually some journal prompts or cues that ask specific questions about how you're feeling about certain things in your life. Now, it doesn't have to be that formal. Again, there are some great apps for this. I am happy to provide some journal prompts. I will actually provide a lovely resource in the show notes for this if you want to check it out, but come up with what works best for you. Journaling can be as simple as, when you get that email and you're thinking, I got so many things that I want to say as a response. And maybe you type up that email, but you don't actually send it. You sit on it for a little while. That's like a form of journaling as well. So getting those thoughts out. This is going back to what I was talking about when it comes to stress, about the things you can and cannot control. For those things you cannot control, this might be a great way to get all of your thoughts about that out of your head and into whether a paper or digital format of some sort, but it helps you to process through that conversation without necessarily speaking to a particular person about it. We've all experienced those unproductive conversations where we have found ourselves in a stressful situation. We try to discuss a circumstance with a particular person and it doesn't go well. We get agitated, they get agitated, emotions run high, and we find ourselves no further along. And if anything is possible, we or they have said something that we regret. Journaling helps us to potentially avoid some of that conflict that comes from those conversations and allows us to properly organize and gather our thoughts and gain different perspectives as well. Now, another thing I'm going to recommend when it comes to stress management, and you're going to laugh at me for this one, I know, but I promise it's worth it. And that is to reduce your work. And we're going to cover this further in a future episode. We're going to be diving further into productivity and time management strategies. But the shortest version that I can give you is to work to identify where your highest value is every single day, where you really need it within your company, within your business. Where is your highest value? What are the things that you should really be working on, and concentrate on the work that fits within that? So prioritize your task list and focus on your top 3 items every day. And essentially everything else gets pushed aside unless time allows for it. And again, this is easier said than done. I've got some great tips. If you go to aboutshaunalynn.com/time, I will have a link for this in the show notes so you can check it out. I've got a great PDF that you can download about how I gain an extra 10 hours every single week using these strategies. But again, we'll have another full episode on productivity and time management strategies as well. But know your limitations and say no to things. This will help you to reduce your workload as well. Now, the next time that you are feeling stressed, I want you to identify what you're doing to cope and acknowledge any sort of unhealthy coping mechanisms that you are currently using. These might include things like drinking or binge eating, or perhaps calling your ex, things like that. Now, once you identify what the unhealthy habits are, you can then work to replace them with healthy habits. So you can use the tips that were provided earlier in this episode for creating those healthy habits. Now, perhaps your glass of wine, for example, becomes a cup of tea, and perhaps your binge eating becomes a healthy indulgence of some sort, and perhaps calling your ex becomes reaching out to a friend or a family member or even a professional. Or perhaps that simply turns into journaling. So I hope that you can put these stress management tactics to work. And again, I want you to build a stress management habit. So this means practicing stress management even when you don't need it. So when you're not stressed. So every day, practice these things. That means you're going for a walk even when you're not stressed. That means that you are evoking your senses even when you're not stressed, right? That means that you're journaling even when you're not stressed, and you're meditating and breathing even when you're not stressed. All of these things need to be done when you are not stressed, so that when you are stressed, you can call on every single one of them. And please understand this, you're not going to be perfect at it every single time, no matter how strong this habit is. For myself, I have a very strong stress management habit. And yet a couple of weeks ago, I myself found myself in a situation of feeling overwhelmed and stressed. And I had to call on every single tool in my toolbox multiple times. And was it difficult? Yes. Did I do it perfectly? No. But I was able to acknowledge that as well. And that has a huge power in it, knowing that I was doing everything that I could to combat that stress and get myself into a healthy mindset so that I could move forward, so that I wouldn't get stuck. Stress can make us stuck, and I want to get you unstuck, ideally. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to stress management is that another way that I manage my stress levels and my health is that I've taken the time to really evaluate and identify what matters most to me and ensure that that's how I spend my time. So for me, for example, my family is incredibly important. My cats are incredibly important, and my health and my fitness are incredibly important to me. So when you've identified those things that are important to you, being able to manage your stress and manage your day to allow you to spend more time and energy on those things that you enjoy, on those things that you cherish, is going to really motivate you. So that's where the motivation and accountability to building those habits really comes in. Now, remember, habits are not formed overnight. But with dedication and perseverance, you can create a lasting change in both your life and your business by working to build these habits every single day. So again, you're going to start off by identifying what habits you want to build. And then you're going to build in your cue, routine, and reward system. So what is the trigger that causes the habit? And that's the routine. And then how are you going to reward yourself for that? So it's something you're going to feel good about. Think about habit stacking. So how can you add a new habit onto an existing habit to make it really stick? All right, listen, if what I'm saying here today resonates with you, then I really hope that you'll tune in again next week and allow me to continue to be a part of your journey. Be sure to please leave us a review, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you know someone else that would enjoy this, please share it with them. And until next time, I want you to keep building those habits for a brighter future and keep thriving. Have a good one.